I think the visual should change, and he'll open it.
There it is.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you all for jumping in and joining us on your lunch break today for Oklahoma City, our OKC Design and Tech September event. Last month we had a happy hour and we had a bunch of new faces come out to that Fassler Hall. That was like the German brewery. But yeah, Fassler Hall last month. This month we're jumping back into a virtual meetup, and we'll probably do another one in October and November, and then wrap that up for 2021. So today we have an awesome speaker. Marc, I'm always going to say it wrong, but like
You're good. Skid.
Skade.
Yeah.
Skade.
Skid.
Skade. Okay, I was very close. We have a speaker from Heartland. He is a senior business analyst and scrum master for our Heartland payroll team. And recently he's been working with our Heartland customer experience design team, which has been pretty exciting. He's going to be talking about gamification framework and how can we have healthy and happy lives within all of that. So I'll just let Marc jump in here, and you guys feel free to reach out in our Slack channel with questions. If the questions are open in Twitch, feel free to write them there, and we'll get to those when they pop up and or at the end. Okay. Awesome. Thank you again. And Marc, I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, thank you. And first thing, yeah, thanks for sacrificing some of your lunch to see me talk. I appreciate it. Hopefully this is good information and at minimum is entertaining. So the most important thing is, who is this guy? Well, my name's Marc. She already said most of this stuff. The most important thing I want to put out here is that, I'm terrible with calendars. So I appreciate y'all coming because I might not have made it. Going into this, what we're going to do today is kind of talk about gamifying and why gamifying is important. But this quote is one of my favorite quotes, kind of dealing with this. And to break it down, what he's saying in this quote is that it's if you just sit down and you stare and you're like, I'm going to have an idea or I'm going to do a thing, it's so much harder than if you kind of relax and just enjoy and you play with it. There's a reason why there's a saying out there that says when someone has a problem or wants to think about something, they say, well, hang on, let me play with it. And really, they mean experiment and kind of enjoy the process of creating something. That's what this particular quote means, and I think it's a pretty good example of how we take that and then apply it to the workplace. We can actually have people enjoy themselves while actually producing at the same time. So to kind of go over what we're doing today, we're going to discuss gamification kind of at a high level, like what is it, what are different types, because there's more than one, and then get into the specifics of the RACE framework. Again, this is kind of couched in Agile Scrum terminology because that's where I'm from. But I want to be clear that this has nothing to do with Agile or Scrum, except that it can apply to that. You can easily apply this outside of that in any working arrangement that you have, as long as it's team-based. So going into this, the first thing I want to do is create something fun with you guys. So I hope all of you have seen the classic movie Super Troopers. And if you remember, there's a scene where the guy says meow when he's, given a ticket. So what I'd like to do is ask for you guys to go to this link, and I'll bring it up here in a second. And this is going to kind of be a vote, okay? So go here, use that code, and throw in a word that you'd like to see me use throughout the presentation, and I'll work it in. And then at the end, and Tori or Doji, whoever's able to, could one of you keep track, because I'll just be rocking along. But the amount of times I say that word, I'd like y'all to guess at the end. So Tori will be our official word keeper. But what I like you to do is go here, just throw in a word that you'd like me to say, even if it's just meow, and I'll work it in right meow to the conversation.
And I did put the link into our user group on Slack.
Cool. So I'll give this like a minute or two, see what we come up with. As people throw in words, keep an eye out. They'll show up on the screen and they'll get bigger as well. So for instance, victorious. Oh, nice. And I should say there's one caveat to this whole thing. They obviously have to be, professional in some aspect. As much as I enjoy cursing, and keep
Yeah,
in mind,
safer work.
yeah, and keep in mind, you can pick these. You can vote for other people's words too. So I see MFA in there. So whoever's from Heartland, I feel you,
Oh
but
Lord,
I'm vetoing that one.
that was not mine.
So again, you see these words. You can also choose these words, type them in, and that'll bump the word to be bigger. Because I'll pick either the center word or the biggest word, in about we'll give it another minute or two. And feel free to refresh and vote again if you need to on a word twice, as
Yeah.
long as it's not your own. Don't cheat. All right. Well, looks like I'm not seeing any motion here. So I'm going to go with frazzled then because I like it and it's in the center right now. So I'll work frazzled in unless there's any last minute. Oh, okay. We're doing
Yeah,
frazzled.
it looks like
So
I tried to vote again, and
it didn't let
I
you.
think I have to log in.
Oh.
Maybe.
All right. Well, I won't worry about it. We'll go with frazzled. That'll work for me. All right. So moving in the presentation. This slide's a much. I get it, but I really wanted to share this slide because to me it is one of the key ways of defining gamification, and this is through Gartner. But just read the bold parts; they're the most important. The goal is you're using game mechanics and design to digitally enhance, digitally engage, and motivate people to achieve their goals, right? And this ties in a little bit to, I'm gonna name drop Daniel Pink's book Drive because it's amazing. He goes into autonomy, mastery, and purpose are the three intrinsic motivators for people to want to do things. So this tries to engage people, tries to motivate them, and there's some level of autonomy with gameplay. So if you're interested in more of this, I don't really want to touch on this too heavily because to me, everyone should understand gamifying. It's making things into a game, with the purpose of getting people more involved. It can be complicated, it can be simple, but that's the thrust of it. So what I like to talk about though is the types, because there are actually multiple different types, just like there are different types of games, that you play on your Xbox. So for instance, there are competitive games. So if you've ever been part of an organization where, for instance, they go and say, hey, the top salesperson gets a trip to Bermuda. Everybody else, top 10 get, $10 gift cards and everybody else gets nothing. That's competitive. You're playing against your peers. So there are some problems with this, right? Because it doesn't encourage people to work together. So you really build person A and person B. Person A might cutthroat person B just to get, that Bermuda prize. So that's one form of it. Then the other more mature form is single player. So same situation where, hey, all of you can go to Bermuda, but you need to get $100,000 in sales to go to Bermuda. So, but you can get, various other prizes at different dollar amounts. So this is single player. So that's an evolution from competitive. So now you're not actively competing, but the trick here is there's no incentive for you to help anyone else. So the company doesn't gain or net as much from single player because you are going to want to get yours to that goal that for that Bermuda trip. And you have no incentive to help person B except you're a nice person or community, but the system itself is not inclined to move in that direction. So the further evolution now, right, is cooperative or co-op gamification. And the platform I'm talking about is one of the ways to do that. But cooperative is where you say, hey guys, you as a group have to achieve XYZ or do XYZ to get a reward. So then people are incentivized to collaborate with their neighbors, their peers, and kind of build this small tight knit group that succeeds. Now it doesn't get rid of all the problems, but it's just one of the current evolutions of the gamification kind of in the workplace. So with those in mind, I would actually like to know what kind of gamification you have experienced in the workplace. So this is more for me. There's co-op, competitive, single player, none, or other. Like, have you experienced something that really doesn't defies the categories I have? So with that in mind, sorry, I'm a little frazzled. But what have you experienced? And we'll give this a couple minutes, see what we can do, and go from there. Mainly what I've seen in the workplace is a lot of competitive, especially in sales. That's why I use an example. And then for a lot of other people, you'll see it be single player, where it'll be like attendance rewards. If you make perfect attendance, you'll get a prize. Those are good examples. But we'll give this a minute or two. Oh, nice, nice. We got a cooperative.
So are we going back into Menti with this code?
Yep, this is the new code right here at the top.
Cool.
Actually, I think I can copy the link here too for you. So let's see if I can throw this in here. All right, and yeah, that's what gets. I'm not unsurprised by seeing competitive be one of the big ones. Um, Businesses tend to think of it as the most natural form of gamification. In my mind, it's really not though, because individually helps your company, but do companies succeed based off of one individual or based off of groups, right? And that kind of driving philosophy is what, defines whether you use competitive, single player, or cooperative. All right. Yeah, so mostly competitive. I would agree with that. I'm interested. I didn't see any single player, but I am glad to see that cooperative exists in there as well. That's pretty crucial for me. And none, I understand. Like, not everybody in the world is down to play. So I'm going to move into the actual race framework to begin with. Now, as far as this goes, the way I'm going to describe this is through our team. So I'm going to tell a story about the team that I've done this on and kind of experimented with this. But to give you the highlights up front of what the framework is about, it is cooperative gameplay. It is points based. It is Scrum Agile based, but extremely modifiable. And we'll get into that for those of you who are not in like a development space. And then it designs with the power to the players. It's designed with power to the players. So players also do objectives. They set everything in the framework. It's not just you're being told what to do and you got to do it. So you interact and you're a part of setting the standards, not just playing the game. And then the last point is team-centric rewards. So key here is, you want to make sure everybody is focused on everyone succeeding versus individual success. So they help each other out and kind of grow as a team and have fun. So I'll start my story here. I work at Harlan, as said, and I am a Scrum Master for a couple teams. And one of my teams, we've been doing this for, I don't even know, almost 8 months, somewhere in there, start of the year. And what happened is that at the beginning, the volatility of work, like how we were delivering work, was way up, way down. Like, you couldn't really predict what we would do. And the team wasn't super focused on improving that. They were just trying to do what they could do to get through the day and, get work done. So what I did is I tried to find a way where we could all have fun and enjoy, get a break from work, but also start focusing on how to be better as a team. So with that in mind, like the first thing I kind of thought of was like, of course, well, we need to know where we're going and what we're doing. So the first thing I did was kind of build out a scorecard. So the way these scorecards work is there are objectives, there's the points possible, the actual points you get, right? And how to score. That's pretty basic. Um, the key is that these are all defined and agreed upon through the team. They're not individually done by me as, you know, a person in control or any other person outside the team. The team discusses and achieves these. My goal is to kind of show you how we did that and then see if you guys can apply it to your own situations as needed. So going into specifics now, the first column is objectives. And that's really like, what do you want to do? So when we're talking about this on a team level, what did we want to improve upon? Well, one of the things was we have meetings at the start of every day to kind of gain alignment and, you know, get up to speed. So the first one was this stand-up ceremony attendance. That was important. And I'll be honest, it was really important to me, but they went along with it and were very generous in letting me put it on there. So I appreciated it. They also were like, well, hang on, we want to plan more because we're kind of rocky sometimes. We're not sure what our planning is. So like, okay, so let's put one in about having a swarm, which is everybody get together and plan their work. And then, okay, let's have another swarm, which is everybody getting together to get one piece of you know, work through. And in development world, we call it a user story. But so they're like, that was important to them because they wanted to be more intentional about what they're doing and they wanted to make sure they were staying connected to each other. And so the last one, they're like, well, we want to be high quality. So if something makes it from us to a production environment or outside of our area of influence, we should have an objective based around those issues and how they could impact us. So this kind of covered those areas. Now there were more objectives in this, but this is a good kind of high level overview. So once we had these objectives, right, the next bit is to get into, well, how do we score them? How do we value them? And so this goes a couple of different ways, but so the key here is points possible is the total points we're willing to allot to a thing. Here you see it's 10, 10, 10. So according to the team, these are all equal in terms of priority. Now let's say post-deployment issues are easy, they're not a problem, so they reduce it down to 5 and they move those points up to everybody needs to be in meetings because nobody's making meetings. You can do that. So shifting points around, having more points in more important areas, less amount of points in less areas, totally fine. So that's how you kind of gear the points. And then the actual points are based off of how to score, right? And there's 2 ways we advocate with that. The first is percent or sliding scale. And the second is kind of like incremental, if that makes sense. So like if you see down here, this one dealt with the post-deployment issues. So they wanted to say, okay, hang on. We only want to lose 2 points per issue. So it'll take 5 issues for us to completely lose all points. So the key here is you're getting some points at each part of the phase and it's not all or nothing because that doesn't motivate anybody. Oh, we missed it the first time, no points. We can continue to miss it the rest of the time. That doesn't work well for anyone. So this is where we get into that kind of example scenario here. For instance, this is a sprint example, but think about it this way. You have 2 weeks of time and I say, we're committing to doing 10 items at the beginning of that time frame. And we want to make sure we complete all 10 items, okay? So, well, how much is it worth to us? Well, team in negotiation with, you know, me as a scrum master and the other people involved, it's 10 points. Great. All right, so how do we achieve those points? Well, in this case, if you only complete half of the work that you committed to up front, you only get half the points then, a third. It's pretty straight transfer over, but doing so allows for enablement to say, even though we're not all the way there, we're only part of the way there, we're still getting acknowledgement for that part. And it's motivating us to grow further. So it helps you kind of stretch into it because we'll get to this later. You shouldn't get all the points. That's not the goal. So one other thing that's important about points is dealing with points as stretch goals, which are bonus points. So the team sets a lot of the points that are in the sprint, the objectives and whatnot. But other people kind of want to help the team improve too. For instance, like your leadership might, a director might be like, man, I really wish they'd do this. Or maybe their direct manager, I would like this, or whatever the case may be. Or a situation comes up that they handle and crush, even though it's in the middle of their sprint. And though they handle it, now that puts some of their objectives at risk. These are all situations where bonus points come into play. So on my team, for instance, they had to deploy, took them forever, and it cost them some ability to do some of their work. Well, we gave them points as bonus points to offset that, because we recognized that they're still working hard. They just didn't have the ability or the foreknowledge, because no one's sight, at least on my team, to see that, right? And so we don't want them to feel disheartened because they didn't accomplish their work and do the other thing that magically appeared. So we offset using these extra points. So again, that's one way to handle it. The other is a kind of a motivational tool, like, hey, you're doing great, but what if we had more automation? What if we had this shiny? And so then you can use it as kind of bait for the team to say, well, can we get this, and we'll give you some extra points. And the team accepts those opportunities, but they accept them. They're not committing to them. So they're not saying, we'll do this for sure, but we hear you. This is an option. If we have time for it, we'll get it done. So this is kind of where we drive into a point totals. And these are a lot of questions that traditionally kind of come up with that. And one of the things to kind of keep in mind is how many points per iteration, how many iterations, and when to spend the points. So to talk about this, iteration just means a top block of time. So you're going to want to have a block of time that you play the game in, right? That's a round, for instance. So I could easily set a round here instead of iteration. But how many points is kind of up to you. My recommendation is 100 points per round or iteration. And mainly because it's a nice round number, it's 3 figures. It gives you a lot of variety inside of that. And then how many iterations or rounds before you start a new game? Generally, I would recommend this on a quarter basis or less. So you want to have enough so you can build up some points, but you also want to potentially have less than that. You don't want to go too long, I should say. So if you go for a year with points, that's way too long. You want to encourage those points to be gathered in a specific time frame and used. So again, quarter or less tends to be a good time frame for that. And then when to spend points is one of the most critical issues. So we'll get into what points get you in a moment. But a key here is you want to have the points being spent on fun things for the team, and the team's the one that spends them on a pretty regular basis. Ideally, you don't want to go a quarter or 2 quarters without a team spending those points. Sometimes it's just the nature of the game because you're busy, and a fully committed team to the work is going to recognize when's a good time versus a not good time for it. But ideally, in every sort of round or every couple of rounds or a couple times per quarter, somewhere in that time frame is what you want to go with, because otherwise they're putting all the work but not getting rewards. It's not a great feedback mechanism and doesn't really make it fun. All right. So now talking about rewards. So I want to talk first about how to shape rewards, and then we'll get into the buying of rewards. So the rewards aren't external. The team comes up with the rewards, and rewards fall into generally one of 2 buckets. They fall into time or money. So getting lunch delivered to your house, that's money, right? And then taking a few hours to game, which is my team's favorite way to spend this time. Take a few work hours and we'll go play whatever game people want to play. We've done Minecraft, Rocket League. I could go on, but that's time. So time is critical because if you're doing work right, this has to give you a higher level of work than you had previously to justify that time. And then money, well, money's money. That's pretty straightforward. So the team thinks about rewards that are both time, money, or both related. Another one is I make beef jerky. My team likes my beef jerky. So occasionally they bought beef jerky with their points, which is super flattering to me. I love that. I like
That's
that.
fun. I'll
Right?
take some.
That's pretty cool.
You're in Oklahoma, right?
Yep.
All right, I'll drive by.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you'll have to let me know to make sure I have some in stock, but yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, so that was the one that got brainstormed up, right? I was like, well, I make beef jerky. If you guys want to try it, great. So there's cost to me, but then I just expense that cost because leadership accepted the cost for it. So once the team has kind of a list of ideas, leadership's job is to review those ideas and assign point values. Now, we don't want to see some arbitrary thing like 347 points for this particular one item. That's way too complicated. We just want them in buckets: small, medium, large. And a small is generally, I'm going to use the example of 100 points. A small should be a reward that can happen inside one iteration or round. A medium, every couple of iterations around, and a large is once per the entire quarter or larger time box. And they should reflect that number of points. So whatever number of points you use, like I said, if we'll say it's six rounds, one quarter, we'll say 6 rounds, that's 600 points. A large reward would be like somewhere in the 500 range, where a small should be around the 80. Key being is they're not going to get all the points all the time, so you want it to be inherently achievable, not the max. So it's not going to be, this is 100 points, that's a 2 iteration reward, because they're not always going to get there. So time is great on that. Like I said, most leadership love time. Money seems to be tight up front, but once they start seeing the value of this and how this is helping you guys, they tend to back that idea. So we're going to go through the rules. These rules are designed to guide good practice, and they have some philosophy behind them. No direct monetary rewards allowed. Oh my gosh, sorry. No direct monetary rewards allowed. So with that, there's an interesting thing out there where money doesn't really motivate over long term. It's great for, I'll pay you 20 bucks to do this thing, but the next time I'll pay you 20 bucks to do the same thing. People are less inclined to do it time over time. So money is not a great way to like play the game, because it doesn't provide the correct level of like fun. And you're just telling people to go away, take this money and do what you want with it. You want it to be fun for the people involved. On that note, no individual rewards. Like, you don't want Bob to go off and do one thing, Sally to go off and do another. You want your team to be rewarded for being a good team, for being meshing well and getting stuff done. And now that doesn't mean everybody on the team has to do the same thing, but like, you could have a couple people playing Minecraft and a couple people playing Rocket League, for instance. That's still playing together as a team. It's just having a connected experience is more powerful than having a bunch of individual experiences. The next rule is kind of critical. So a lot of problems come up when you aren't able to set your own things you want to improve upon. And that's really what an objective is. If you're told from an outside source, this is what you have to improve upon, that's not as engaging to you to say, how do you want to improve? And let's make it a game. So in this, everyone gets to set those objectives, because with that, it allows you to have a voice in how you as a group are, improving. So this is my favorite rule. A lot of people ask, well, how do you keep people from gaming the system, from making it work for them instead of being a tool for improvement? Well, I treat people like adults. Like, if you're an adult, this has to be done. And if you try to manipulate or game the system, the game is over. Like, that's just a simple rule. It may sound harsh or whatever, but like you're an adult, you know how this works. This is for fun. If you're gonna make it not fun, why would we keep going? And then on the same note as before with objectives, it is also extremely important that everybody can challenge an objective. So challenging means, I think we're way too good, we don't need this objective anymore. I think we need to make it harder. I think this is really difficult, so I don't want to do it anymore. I want to make it easier. Those kind of things. So everybody has a voice, not only in setting, but adjusting the objectives as they go along. And my next favorite rule, objectives by design are to become more difficult. So what's the fun in a game that stays the same, right? Once you beat a game, it becomes really boring unless you're a completionist. But even if you're a completionist, your game is completing everything, and then the game's boring. So this system, it says, okay, so if you're mastering an objective,